Chapter 13 Detention with Dolores. Dinner in the Great Hall that night was not a pleasant experience for Harry. The news about his shouting match with Amrit seemed to have traveled suspiciously fast even by Hogwarts standards. He heard whispers all around him as he sat eating between Ron and Hermione. The funny thing was that none of the whispers seemed to mind him or hearing what they were saying about him. On the contrary, it was as though they were hoping he would get angry and start shouting again so that they could hear his story firsthand. They say he saw Cedric Diggory's murdered. He reckoned he duelled with you know who. Come of it. Who does he think he's kidding? Your Liz. What? I don't get, said Harry in shaking voice, laying down his knife and fork. His hands were trembling too much and hold them steady. Is why they all believe the story 2 months ago when Dumbledore told them. The thing is, Harry, I'm not sure that they did, said Hermione grimly. Oh, let's get out of here. She slammed down her own knife and fork. Ron looked sadly at his half-finished apple pie, but followed suit. People stared at them all the way out of the hall. What do you mean you are not sure they believe Dumbledore? Harry asked Hermione when they reached the first floor landing. Look, you don't understand what it was like after it happened, said Hermione quickly. You arrived back in the middle of the lawn, clutching Cedric's dead body. None of us saw what happened in the maze. We just had Dumbledore's word of it that you know who had come back and killed Cedric and fought you, which is the truth, said Harry loudly. I know it is, Harry. So will you please stop beating my head off, said Hermione wearingly. Just that before the truth could sink in, everyone went home for the summer, where they spent 2 months reading about how you are a nutcase and Dumbledore's going senile. Rain pounded on the window span as they strode along the empty corridor back to the Gryffindor Tower. Harry felt as though his first day had lasted a week, but he still had a mountain of homework to do before bed. A dull-pounding pain was developing over his right eye. He glanced out of the rain-washed window at the dark ground as they turned into the fat lady's corridor. There was still no light in Hagrid's cabin. Wimbledoniana, said Hermione before the fat lady could ask. The portrait swung open to reveal the hole behind, and three of them scrambled back through it. The common room was almost empty. Nearly everyone was still down at dinner. Shanks uncoiled himself with the armchair and trotted to meet them, roaring loudly, and when Harry, Ron and Hermione took their three favorite chairs at the first sight, they leaped lightly into Hermione's lap and curled up there like a furry ginger cushion. Harry gazed into the flame, feeling drained and exhausted. How can Dumbledore have let this happen? Hermione cried suddenly, making Harry and Ron jump. Crookshanks leapt off her, looking affronted. She pounded the arm of her chair in fury, so that beat of suffering leaked out of the hole. How can he let that terrible woman teach us? And in our owl's ear too. Well, we have never had great defense against the dark art teacher, have we? Said Harry. You know what it like. Harry told us nobody wants the job. They say it jinxed. Yes, but we employ someone who is actually refusing to let us do magic. What's Dumbledore's playing at? And she's trying to get people to spy for her, said Ron darkly. Remember when she said she wanted us to come and tell her if we hear anyone saying you know who is back? Of course, she here to spy on us, all that's obviously. Why else would Fudge have wanted her to come? Snapped Hermione. Don't start arguing again, said Harry wearily. As Ron opened his mouth to retaliate, can't we just do that homework, get it out of the way. They collected their school bag from a corner and returned to their chair for the fire. People were coming back from dinner now. Harry kept his face averted from the portrait hole but could still sense the stares he was attracting. Shall we do Snape stuff first? Said Ron, dipping his quill into the ink. The properties of moonstone and its use in potion making, he muttered, writing the word across the top of the parchment as he spoke them. There, he underlined the title, then looked up expectantly at Hermione. So, what are the properties of moonstone and its use in potion making? But Hermione was not listening. She was squinting over into far corner of the room where Fred, George, and Lee Jordan were now sitting. At the center of the knot of innocent-looking first year, all of whom were chewing something that seemed to have come out of a large paper bag that Fred was holding. No, I'm sorry. They have gone too far, she said, standing up and looking positively furious. Come on, Ron. I. What? Said Ron, plainly playing for time. No, come on. Hermione, we can't tell them off for giving out sweets. You know perfectly well that those are bites of nosebleed, nougats, or cooking pastels, or renting fantasies. Harry suggested quickly. One by one, as they hit over the head with invisible mallet, the first year were slumping unconscious in their seat, some slide right onto the floor, others merely hung over the arms of their chair, their tongue rolling out. Most of the people watching were laughing. Hermione, however, squared her shoulder and marched directly over to where Fred and George now stood with clipboard closely observing the unconscious first year. Ron rose halfway out of his chair, hovered uncertainly for a moment or two, then muttered to Harry, "He's got it under control," before sinking as low in his chair as his lanky frame permitted. "That's enough," Hermione said forcefully to Fred and George, both of whom looked up in middle surprise. "Yeah, you're right," said George, nodding. "This dosage looks strong enough, doesn't it? I told you this morning you can't test your rubbish on students. We are playing then," said Fred indigently. "I don't care. It could be dangerous." "Rubbish," said Fred. "Calm down, Hermione. They are fine," said Les resignedly as he walked from first year to first year, inserting purple sweet into their open mouth. "Here, look, they are coming round now," said George. A few of the first year were indeed staring. Several looked so shocked to find themselves lying on the floor or dangling off their chairs, and Harry was sure Fred and George had not warned them what the sweet were going to do. "Feel all right," said George kindly to a small dark-haired girl lying at his feet. "I think so," she said shakily. "Excellent," said Fred happily. But the next second Hermione had snatched both his clipboard and the paper bag of painting fantasies from his hand. "It is not excellent." "Course it is. They are alive, aren't they?" said Fred angrily. "You can't do this. What if you made one of them really ill?" "We are not going to make them ill. We are already tested them all of ourselves. This is just to see if everyone reacts the same. If you don't stop doing it, I am going to put us in detention," said Fred. "I'd like to see you try it twice." "Make us write lines," said George, smirking. Onlookers all over the room were laughing. Hermione drew herself up to her full height. Her eyes were narrowed and her bushy hair seemed to crack with electricity. "No," she said, her voice quivering with anger, "but I will write to your mother." "You wouldn't," said George, horrified, taking a step back from her. "Oh, yes, I would," said Hermione dreamily. "I can't stop you eating this stupid thing yourself, but you are not giving them to first years." Fred and George looked thunderstruck. It was clear that, as far as they were concerned, Hermione's threat was way below the belt. With the last threatening look at them, she thrust Fred's clipboard and the bag of fancies back into his arm and stalked back to her chair by the fire. Ron was now so low in his seat that his nose was roughly level of his knees. Thank you for your support, Ron, Hermione said acidly. You handle it fine by yourself, Ron mumbled. Hermione stared down at her blank piece of parchment for a few seconds, then said easily, "Oh, it's good. I can't concentrate now. I'm going to bed." She wrenched her bag open. Harry thought she was about to put her book away, but instead she pulled out two misshapen woolly objects, placed them carefully on the table by the fireplace, covering them with a few screwed up bits of parchment and broken quill, and stood back to admire the effect. "What in the name of Merlin are you doing?" said Ron, watching her as though fearful for her sanity. "What in the name of Merlin are you doing?" said Ron, watching as though fearfully for her sanity. "They are hat of house elves," she said, brisking, now suffering her books back into her bag. "I did them over the summer. I am really slow nighter without magic, but now I am back at school. I should be able to make lots more. You're leaving out us for the house elves," said Ron slowly, "and you're covering them up with rubbish first." "Yes," said Harmony, definitely, flinging her bag onto her back. "That's not on," said John angrily. "You're trying to trick them into picking up the hat. You are setting them free when they might not want to be free." "Oh, of course they want to be free," said Harmony at once, though her face was turning pink. "Don't you dare to touch those hats, Ron." She left. Ron waited until she had disappeared through the door to the girl dormitories, then cleared the rubbish of the woolly hat. "They should at least see what they are picking up," she said firmly. Anyway, he rolled up the parchment on which he had written the title of Snape's essay. "There is no point trying to finish this now. I can't do it without Harmony. I haven't got a clue what you're supposed to do with the moonstone, have you?" Harry shook his head, noticing as he did so that his ache in his right temple was getting worse. He thought of two long essays on giant wars and the pain stable at his sharply knowing perfectly well that he would regret not finishing his homework tonight. When the morning came, he piled his books back into his bag. "I'm going to bed too." He passed Seamus on the way on the door leading to the dormitory, but did not look at him. Harry had a fleeting impression that Seamus had opened his mouth to speak, but sped up and reached the shooting place of the stone spiral staircase without having to endure any more provocation. The following day dawned just as leaden and rainy as the previous one. Hagrid was still absent from the staff table at breakfast, but on the plus side, no Snape today, said Ron brazenly. Hermione yawned widely and poured herself some coffee. She looked mildly pleased about something, and when Ron asked her what she had to be so happy about, she simply said, "The hats have gone. Seem the house elves do want freedom after all." "I wouldn't be on it," Ron told her cuttingly. "They might not count as clothes. They didn't look anything like had to be, more like a woolly bladder." Hermione did not speak to him all morning. Double charms was succeeded by double transfiguration. Professor Flitwick and Professor McGonagall both spent the first 15 minutes of their lesson lecturing the class on the importance of owls. "What you must remember," said little Professor Flitwick squeakily, perched as ever on a pile of books so that he could see over the top of his desk, "is that this examination may influence your future for many years to come. If you have not already given serious thought to your career, now is the time to do so, and in the meantime I am afraid we shall be working harder than ever to ensure that you all do yourself justice." They then spent more than a hour reviewing summoning charms, which, according to Professor Flitwick, were bound to come in their owls, and he rounded off the lesson by setting them their largest amount of charm homework ever. It was the same, if not worse, in the Transfiguration. You cannot pass an owl, said Professor McGonagall grimly, without serious application, practice, and study. I see no reason why everybody in the class should not achieve an owl's in Transfiguration. As long as they put in the work, Neville made a sad little disbelieved noise. Yes, you too, Longbottom, said Professor McGonagall. There is nothing wrong with your work except lack of confidence. So, today we are starting Vanishing Spell. These are easier than Conjuring Spell, which you would not usually attempt until NEWT level, but they are still among the most difficult magic you will be tested on in your owls. She was quite right. Harry found the vanishing spell horribly difficult. But the end of the double period, neither he nor Ron had managed to vanish the snail on which they were practicing, though Ron said hopefully that he thought his look a bit paler Hermione on the other hand, successfully vanished her snail on the third attempt, earning her a 10-point bonus for Gryffindor from Professor McGonagall. She was the only person not giving homework. Everybody else was told to practice the spell overnight, ready for the fresh attempt on their snail the following afternoon. Now, panicking slightly about the amount of homework they had to do, Harry and Ron spent their lunch hour in the library looking up the use of moonstone in potion making. Still angry about Ron's slur on her holy hats, Hermione did not join them by the time they reached care of magical creature in the afternoon. Harry's head was aching again. The day had become cool and breezy, and as they walked down the sloping lawn toward Hagrid's cabin at the edge of Forbidden Forest, they felt the occasional drop of rain on their faces. Professor Crabbe glanced quickly from the glass fountain at the crystal table in front of her many times. As Harry and Ron began laughter. Everyone here, barked Professor Grubbly Plank, when all the Slytherin and Gryffindor had arrived. Let's crack one then. Who can tell me what these things are called? He indicated the leap of twig in front of her. Hermione's hand shot into the air behind her back. Malfoy did a bucktooth imitation of her, jumping up and down in eagerness to answer the question. Pansy Parkinson gave a shriek of laughter that turned almost at once into a scream as the twins of the table leaped into the air and revealed themselves to be what looked like tiny pixie creatures made of wood, each with nobly brown arms and legs, two twinkling like fingers at the end of each hand, and funny flat bark-like face in which a pair glittered brown eye glittered. Oh, said Parvati and Lavender, thoroughly irritating Harry. Anyone would have thought that Hagrid never showed them impressive creature, admitted that Flower Worm had been a bit dull, but the salamander and hippogriff had been interesting enough, and the blast ended screwed perhaps too much so. Kindly keep your voice down, girls, said Professor Grubbly Plank sharply, scattering a handful of what looked like brown rice among the stick creature, who immediately fell upon the food. So anyone know the name of this creature? Miss Granger, Truckles, said Hermione. They are tree guardian, usually live in one trees. 5 points for Gryffindor, said Professor Doubly Plank. Yes, these are Truckles, and as Miss Granger rightly say, they generally live in tree wars. Wood is of one quality. Anybody knew that what they ate would allies, said Harmony promptly, with explaining why what Harry had taken for a grain of brown rice were moving, but fairy egg if they can get them. Good girl, take another 5 points. So whether you need leaf or wood for a tree in which the boat trucker loaded, it is wise to have a gift of wood lice ready to distract or placate it. They may not look dangerous, but if angered, they will gouge out human eyes with their fingers, which, as you can see, are very sharp and not at all desirable nearly the eyeball. So, if you had live to gather closely, take a few wood lice and a bow trickle. I have enough here for once between three. You can study them more closely. I want a sketch from each of you with all body parts labeled by the end of the lesson. The class surged forward around the trestle table. Harry deliberately circled around the back so that he ended up right next to Professor Grubbly Plank. "Where is Hagrid?" he asked her while everyone else was choosing Poutricle. "Never you mind," said Professor Grubbly Plank expressively, which had been her attitude last time Hagrid had failed to turn up for a class too. Sprinkling all over his point face, Draco Malfoy leaned across Harry and seized the largest bow truck. "Maybe," said Malfoy in an undertone so that only Harry could hear him. "The stupid great oaf got himself badly injured. Maybe you will if you don't shut up," said Harry out of the side of his mouth. "Maybe he's been messing with the stuff that's too big for him, if you get my drift." Malfoy walked away, springing over his shoulder at Harry, who suddenly felt sick. Did Malfoy know something? His father was a Death Eater. After all, what if he had information about Hagrid's fate that had not you reached the Order's ear? He hurried back around the table of Ron and Hermione, who were squatting in the grass some distance away and attempting to pursue a Bowtruckle to remain still long enough to retrieve it. Harry pulled out parchment and quill, crouched down beside the other, and related in whispered that Malfoy had just said. "Dumbledore would know if something had happened to Hagrid," said Hermione at once. "It's just playing into Malfoy's hand to look worried. It tell him we don't know exactly what's going on. We have got to ignore him. Harry, here, hold the bottle for a moment just so I can draw it first." "Yes." Jim Malfoy's cleared roll from the group nearest them. "Father was talking to the minister just a couple of days ago, and it sounds as though the ministry is really determined to crack down on substandard teaching in this place. So even if that overgrown moron does show up again, he'll probably be sent packing straight away." Ouch! Harry had gripped the bowl sword that it had almost snapped. It had just taken a great retaliatory sweep in his hand with a sharp finger, leaving two long deep cuts there. Harry dropped it, grabbed and Goyle, who had already been guffling at the idea of Hagrid being shackled, laughed with harder as Boutacle set off a full tilt toward the forest. A little moving sick man soon swallowed up by the tree root. When the bell echoed distantly over the ground, Harry rolled up his blood-stained boat-tuckle picture and marched off to Albology with his hand trapped in the handkerchief of Hermione's and Malfoy's derisive laugh still ringing in his ear. "If he called Hagrid a moron or more time," sneered Harry. "Harry, don't go, King. a row with Malfoy. Don't forget, he is a perfect now. He could make a life difficult for you. Wow, I wonder what it had be like to have a difficult life, said Harry sarcastically. Ron laughed, but Hermione furrowed. Together they traipsed across the vegetable patch. The sky still appeared unable to make up its mind whether it wanted to rain or not. I just wish Hagrid would hurry up and get back, that's all, said Harry in a low voice as they reached the greenhouse. And don't say that grubbly planks woman's bed teacher, he added threateningly. I wasn't going to, said Hermione calmly. Because she'll never be as good as Hagrid, said Harry firmly, fully aware that he had just experienced an exemplary care of magical creature lesson and was thoroughly annoyed about it. The door of the nearest greenhouse opened and some 40 years spilled out of it, including Ginny. Hi, she said brightly as she passed. A few seconds later, Luna Lovegood emerged, trailing behind the rest of the class, a smudge of the earth on her nose and her hair tied in a knot on the top of her head. When she saw Harry, her prominent eyes seemed to bulge excitedly and she made a beeline straight for him. Many of his classmates turned curiously, so watch. Luna took a good deep breath and then said without too much as a primarily hello, I believe he who must not be named is back and I believe you fought him and escaped from him. Right, said Harry awkwardly. Luna was wearing what looked like a pair of orange radish for earring, a fact that Parvati and Lavender seemed to have noticed as they were both giggling and pointing at her earlobes. You can laugh, Luna said, her voice rising apparently under the impression that Parvati and Lavender were laughing at what she had said rather than what she was wearing. But people used to believe there were no such thing as the bell-bearing humdinger of a Crubbler honors Norbright. Well, they were right, weren't they? Said Hermione impatiently. There weren't any such thing as blithering humdinger or a crumple honor Snorlax. Luna gave her withering look and Florence away. Radish swing madly. Parvati said Lavender were not the only one hooting with laughter now. Do you mind not offend the only people who believe me? Harry asked Hermione as they made their way into class. Oh, for heaven's sake, Harry, you can do better than her, said Hermione. Ginny told me all about her. Apparently, she'll only believe in things as long as there are no proof at all. Well, I wouldn't expect anything else from someone whose father ran the Quibbler. Harry thought of the sinister wing horse he had seen on the night he had arrived and how Luna had said she could see them too. His spirit sank slightly. Had she been lying? But before he could devote much more thought to the matter, Ernie Macmillan had stepped up to him. I want you to know, Potter, he said in a loud, carrying voice, that it's not the only weirdo who support you. I personally believe you 100%. My family have always stood firm behind Dumbledore, and so do I. Oh, thanks very much, Ernie, said Harry, taken aback. But please, Ernie might be pompous on occasion like this. But Harry was in a mood to deeply appreciate a vote of confidence from somebody who was not wearing radish in their ear. Rani's world had certainly wiped the smile from Lavender Brown's face, and as he turned to talk to Ron and Hermione, Harry caught Seamus' expression, which looked both confused and defiant. To nobody's surprise, Professor Sprout started their lesson by lecturing them about the importance of owls. Harry wished all the teachers would stop doing this. He was starting to get an anxious, twisted feeling in his stomach every time he remembered how much homework he had to do, a feeling that worsened dramatically when Professor Sprout got them yet another essay at the end of the class, tired and smelling strongly of dragon dung. Professor Sprout preferred bank of fertilizer. The Gryffindor trotted back up to the castle an hour and a half later. None of this talking very much. It had been another long day. As Harry was starving and he had for his first detention with Umbridge. At 5 o'clock, he headed straight for dinner without dropping off his bag in Gryffindor Tower so that he could bolt something but down before facing whether she had in store for him. He had barely reached the entrance of the great hall, however, when a loud and angry voice said, "Oi, Potter, what now?" he muttered, wearily turning to face Angelina Johnson, who looked as though she was in a towering temper. "I'll tell you what now," she said, marching straight up to him and poking him hard in the chest with her finger. "How come you have landed yourself in detention for 5 o'clock on Friday?" "What?" said Harry. "Why? Oh, yeah, keeper tryout. Now you remember," sneered Angelina. "Didn't I tell you I wanted to do that tryout with the whole team and find someone who fits in with everyone? Didn't I tell I had booked the quick speech specially? And now you are decided you are not going to be there." "I didn't decided not to be there," said Harry, stung by the injustice of this world. "I got detention from that Umbridge woman just because I told her the truth about you know. Well, you can just go straight to her and ask her to let you off on Friday," said Angelina fiercely. "I don't care how you do it. Tell her you know who is figment of your imagination if you like. Just make sure you are there." She stormed away. "You know what?" Harry said to Ron and Hermione as they entered the Great Hall. "I think we had better check the Puddlemer Untitled whether Olive Wood's been killed during the training session because she seemed to be channeling his spirit. What do you reckon are the odds of Umbridge letting you off on Friday?" said Ron skeptically. As they sat down at the Gryffindor table, "less than zero," said Harry gloomily, tipping lamb chop onto his plate and starting to eat. "Little try though, hadn't I? I'll offer to do 2 more detention or something. I don't know." He swallowed a mouthful of potato and added, "I hope she doesn't keep me too long this evening. You realize we have got to write 3 essay practice vanishing spell for McGonagall. Work out counter-charm for Flitwick, finish the Bowl Tuckle drawing, and start that stupid dream diary for Trelaway." Ron moaned and for some reason glanced up at the ceiling, and "it looked like it's going to rain. What that got to do with our homework?" said Hermione, her eyebrow raised. "Nothing," said Ron at once, his ear reddening. At 5 to 5, Harry bade the other two goodbye and set off for Umbridge's office on third floor. When he knocked on the door, she said, "Come in." In a sugary voice, he entered cautiously, looking around. He had known his office under three of its previous occupant in the days when Gilderoy Lockhart had lived there in had been plastered in beaming portrait of its owner. When Lupin had occupied it, it was likely you would meet some fascinating dark creature in a cage or tank. If you came to call in the impostor Moody's day, it had been packed with various instruments and artifacts for detection of wrongdoing and concealment. Now, however, it looked totally unrecognizable. The surface had all been wrapped in lacy cover and cloth. There were several verses fall on dried flower, each residing on its own dolly, and on one wall was a collection of ornamental plates, each decorated with a large technicolor kitten wearing a different bow around its neck. These were so foul that Harry started at them. Transfixed until Professor Umbridge spoke again. "Good evening, Miss Reporter." Harry started and looked around. He had not noticed her At first, because she was wearing a lordly flower set of robes that blended onto two veil with the tablecloth on the desk behind her. Evening, Harry said stiffly. Well, sit down, she said, pointing toward a small table trapped in lace beside which she had drew up a straight back chair. A piece of blank parchment lay on the table, apparently waiting for him, said Harry without moving. Professor Umbridge, before we start, I want you to ask you a favor. Her bulging eyes narrow. Oh yes, well I'm on Gryffindor Quidditch team and I was supposed to be at a tryout for a new keeper at 5 o'clock on Friday and I was wondering whether I could skip detention that night and do it another night instead. He knew how long before he reached the end of his sentence that it was no good. Oh no, said Amri, smiling so widely that she looked as though she had just swallowed a particularly juicy fly. Oh no, no, no. This is not your punishment for spreading evil, nasty, attention seeking stories, Mr. Potter, and punishment certainly cannot be adjusted to suit the guilty one's convenience. No, you will come here at 5 o'clock tomorrow and the next day and on Friday too, and you will do your detention as planned. I think it rather a good thing that you are missing something you really want to do it out to reinforce the lesson I am trying to teach you. Harry felt the blood surge to his head and heard a thumping noise in his ear. So he told evil, nasty, attention seeking stories, did he? She was watching him with her head slightly to one side, still smiling widely as though she knew exactly what he was thinking and was waiting to see whether he could start shouting again. With a massive effort, Harry looked away from her, dropping his school bag beside the straight back chair and sat down. There, said Umbridge sweetly, we are getting better at controlling our temper already, aren't we? Now, you are going to be doing some lines for me, Mr. Potter. No, not with your quill, she added as Harry bent down to open his bag. You are going to be using a rather special one of mine. Here you are. She handed him a long, thin black quill with an unusual sharp point. I want you to write, I must not tell lies. She told him softly. How many times? Harry asked with a credible imitation of politeness. Oh, as long as it takes for the message to sink in, said Umbridge sweetly. Off you go. She moved over her desk, sat down, and bent over a stack of parchment that looked like essay for marking. Harry raised the sharp black quill and then realized what was missing. You haven't given me any ink, he said. Oh, you won't need ink, said Professor Umbridge with a merest suggestion of laugh in her voice. Harry placed the point of the quill on the paper and wrote, I must not tell lies. He let out a gasp of pain. The word had appeared on the parchment in what appeared to be sinking red ink. At the same time, the word had appeared on the back of Harry's right hand, cut into his skin as though traced there by scalp. Yet, even as he stared at the shining cut, the skin healed over again, leaving the place where it had been slightly redder than before but quite smooth. Harry looked around the bridge. She was watching him, her white, toad-like mouth stretched in a smile. Yes, nothing, said Harry quietly. He looked back at the parchment, placed the quill upon it once more, wrote, I must not tell lies, and felt the searing pain on the back of his hand for a second time. Once again, the word had been cut into the skin. Once again, they healed over a second later and on it went again and again. Harry wrote the word on parchment in what he soon came to realize what not ink but his own blood, and again the words were cut into back of his hand, healed, and then reappeared the next time he said quill. into parchment. That pen fell outside Umbridge's window. Harry did not ask when he would be allowed to stop. He did not even check his watch. He knew she was watching him for sign of weakness and he was not going to show any, not even if he had to sit here all night cutting open his own hand with this quill. "Come here," she said after what seemed hours. He stood up, his hand was stinging painfully. When he looked down at it, he saw that cut was healed, but that the skin there was red raw. And she said, he extended it. She took it in her own. Harry repressed a shudder as she touched him with her thick away finger on which the corner of the ring had once been Well, just have to try again tomorrow evening, won't we? You may go. Harry left her office without a word. The school was quite deserted. It was surely past midnight. He walked slowly up the corridor. Then, when he had turned the corner and was sure that she would not hear him, broke into a run. She had not had time to practice vanishing spell, had not written a single dream in his dreamy diary, and had not finished the drawing of the boutricle, nor had he written his essay. He skipped breakfast next morning to scribble down a couple of made-up dreams for deviation. Their first lesson, and was surprised to find a still Ron keeping his company. "How come you didn't do it last night?" Harry asked as Ron stared wildly around the common room for inspiration. Ron, who had been fast asleep when Harry got back to the dormitory, muttered something about doing other stuff, bent low over his parchment and scribbled a few words. "That's how do," she said slimmingly, the diary shut. "I have said I dreamed I was buying a new pair of shoes. She can't make anything weird out of that, can she?" They hurried off the North Tower together. "How was detention with Umbridge anyway? What did she make you to do?" Harry hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, "Lines." "That's not too bad, then," said Ron. "Nope," said Harry. "Hey, I forgot. Did she let you off for Friday?" "No," said Harry. Ron growled sympathetically. It was another bad day for Harry. She was on one of worse in transfiguration, not having practiced vanishing spell at all. He had to give up his lunch hour to read the future of Oracle, and meanwhile Professor McGonagall, Grubbly Plank, and Sister gave them yet more homework, which he had no prospect of finishing that evening because of his second detention with Umbridge. To cap it all, Angelina Johnson tracked him down at dinner again, and on learning that he would not be able to attend Friday's keeper tryout, told him she was not all at all impressed by his attitude and she expected players who wished to remain on the team to put training before their other commitments. "I'm in detention," Harry yelled after her, and she stalked away. "Do you think I had rather be stuck in the room with that old toad or playing Quidditch? At least it's only lines," said Hermione consolingly, as Harry sank back into his bench and looked down at his steak and kindly pie, which he no longer fancied very much. "It's not as it's dreadful punishment, really." Harry opened his mouth, closed it again, and nodded. He was not really sure why he was not telling Ron and Hermione exactly what was happening in Umbridge's room. He only knew that he did not want to see their looks of horror. That would make the whole thing seem worse and therefore more difficult to face. He also felt dimly that this was between himself and Umbridge, a private battle of wills, and he was not going to give her the satisfaction for hearing that her had complained about it. "I can't believe how much homework we have got," said Ron miserably. "Well, why didn't you do any last night?" Hermione asked him. Were you away?" "I was." I was fancied a walk, said Ron shiftingly. Harry had the distinct impression that he was not alone in a consoling thing at that moment. The second detention was just as bad as the previous one. The skin on the back of Harry's hand came irritated more quickly, now red and inflamed. Harry thought it unlike to keep healing as effectively for long. Soon the cut would remain etched in the hand, and Unbridge would perhaps be satisfied. He let no moan of pain escape him, however, and from the moment of entering the room to the moment of his dismissal again past midnight, he said nothing but good evening and good night. His homework situation, however, was not desperate, as when he returned to the Gryffindor common room, he did not, though exhausted, go to bed, but opened his book and began Snape's Moonstone essay. It was 2:30 by the time he had finished it. He knew he had done a poor job, but there was no help for it unless he had something to give in. He would be in detention with Snape next day. He then dashed off answer to the question Professor McGonagall had said them, bubbled towards something on the proper handling of Bowtuckle for Professor Gubbleprank and staggered up to the bed, where he fell fully clothed to top of the bed cover and fell asleep immediately. Thursday passed in a haze of tiredness. Ron seemed very sleepy too, though Harry could not see why he shouldn't be. Harry thought station passed in the same way as the previous two, except after 2 hours the world, I must not tell lie, did not fade from the back of Harry's hand, but remained scratched there, oozing droplet of blood. The pause in the pointed quill scratching made Professor Umbridge look up. She said softly, moving around her desk to examine his hand herself. Good. That ought to serve as reminder to you or to it. You might leave for tonight. Do I still have to come back tomorrow? Said Harry, picking up school bag with his left hand rather than his smarting right. Oh yes, said Professor Umbridge, smiling widely before. Yes, I think we can each the message little deeper with another evening's work. He had never before considered the possibility that there might be another teacher in the world he hated more than Snape, but as he walked back toward Gryffindor Tower, he had to admit he had found a contender. She is evil, he thought as he climbed a staircase to the seventh floor. She is an evil, twisted, mad old. Ron, he had reached the top of the stair, turned right, and almost walked into Ron's, who had lurking behind the statue of Lachin. The lanky, clutching his broomstick, he gave a great leap of surprise when he saw Harry and attempt to hide his new Cliff Wings 11 behind his back. What are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? Harry frowned at him. Come on, you call tell me, what are you hiding here for? I am hiding from Fred and George, if you must know, said Ron. They just went past with a bunch of first year. I bet they are testing stuff on them again. I mean, they can't do it in the common room now, can they? Not with Hermione there. He walked talking in a very fast, feverish way. But what have you got your room for? You haven't been flying, have you? Harry asked. Well, okay, I'll tell you, but don't laugh. All right, Ron said defensively, turning redder with every second. I thought I had tried out for Gryffindor keeper now. I have got a decent broom there. Go on, laugh. I'm not laughing, said Harry. Ron blinked. It's a brilliant idea. I'd be really cool if you got on the team. I have never seen you play keeper or you would. Not bad, said Ron, who looked immensely relieved at Harry's reaction. Charlie, Fred, and George always made me keep for them when they were training during the holidays. So you have been practicing tonight, ever say evening since Thursday, just on my own. Though I have been trying to bewitch Quaffle to fly at me, but it hasn't been easy, and I don't know how much use it will be. Ron looked nervous and anxious. Fred and George are going to laugh themselves stupid when I turn up for the tryout. They haven't stopped taking the mickey out of me since I got made a perfect. I wish I was going to be there, said Harry bitterly as they set off together toward the common room. Yea, so do. Harry, what's that on back of your hand? Harry, who had just scratched his nose with his finger, free right hand, tried to hide it, but had much success as Ron with his clean sweep. It's just cut, it's nothing. It's but Ron had grabbed Harry's forearm and pulled the back of Harry's hand up level with his eyes. There was a pause, during which he stared at the words carved into the skin. Then he realized Harry looking sick. I thought you said she was giving you lines. Harry hesitated, but after all, Ron had been honest with him. So he told Ron the truth about the hours he had been spending in Umbridge's office. The old hag, Ron said in a revolted whisper as they came to halt in front of the fat lady, was dozing peacefully with her head against her frame. She's sick. Go to McGonagall. Say something. No, said Harry at once. I'm not giving her the satisfaction of knowing she got to you. You can't let her get away with this. I don't know how much power McGonagall got over her, said Harry. Dumbledore, then tell Dumbledore. No, said Harry flatly. Why not? She's not. He's got enough on his mind, said Harry, but that was not the true reason. He was not going to go to Dumbledore for help when Dumbledore had not spoken to him once since last June. Well, I reckon you should. Ron began, but he was interrupted by the fat lady who had been watching them sleepily and now burst out. Are you going to give me the password or will I have to stay awake all night waiting for you to finish your conversation? Friday dawned sullen and sudden as the rest of the week, though Harry glanced toward the staff table automatically when he entered the great hall. It was without real hope of seeing Hagrid, and he turned his mind immediately to his more pressing problem, much as the mountains pills of homework he had to do and prospect of yet another detention with Umbridge. Two things sustained Harry the day. One was the thought that it was almost the weekend. The other was dreadful thought his final detention with Umbridge was sure to be. He had a distance view of which Peach from her without window and might, with luck, be able to see something of Ron's child. These were rather feeble rays on light, it was true, but Harry was grateful for anything that might lighten his present darkness. He had never had a worse first week of the term at Hogwarts. At 5 o'clock that evening, he knocked on Professor Umbridge's office door for what he sincerely hoped would be the final time, was told to enter and did so. The blank parchment lay ready for him on the lace covered table, the pointed black quill beside it. You know what to do, Mr. Potter, said Umbridge, smiling sweetly over at him. Harry picked up the quill and glanced through the window. If he just shifted his chair an inch or so to the right on the pretext of shifting himself closer to the table, he managed it. He now had a distance view of the Gryffindor Quidditch team soaring up and down the pitch, while half a dozen black fingers stood at the foot of the three high goalposts, apparently awaiting their turn to kick. It was impossible to tell which one was Ron at his distance. I must not tell lies. Harry wrote. The cut in the back of his hand had opened and began to bleed afresh. I must not tell lies. The cut dug deeper, thinking and smarting. I must not tell lies. Blood trickling down his wrist. He cast another glance out of the window. Whoever was defending the goalpost now was doing a very poor job. Indeed, Turkey Ben scored twice in a few seconds. Harry dared watch. Being very much keeper he rubbed his eyes. He looked up, whether he thought he could risk it, when he could hear the scratching of Umbri's quill or the opening of desk drawer. The third person to try out was pretty good. The fourth was terrible. The fifth dodged Bulger exceptional. B but then fumble and Ace save. The sky was darkening so that Harry doubted you would be able to watch the six or seven people all at all. I must not tell lies, I must not tell lies. The parchment was now shining with drop of blood from the back of his hand, which was searing with pain. When the door looked up, night had fallen and Twitch Peach was no longer visible. Let's see if you have gotten the message yet, shall we? Said Umbridge's soft voice half an hour later. She moved toward him, stretching out her short, region finger for his arm, and then, as she took hold of him to examine the world now cut into his skin, pain seared not across the back of his hand but across the scar of his forehead. At the same time, he had a most peculiar sensation somewhere around his midriff. He wrenched his arm out of his grip and leapt to his feet, staring at her. She looked back at him and smiled, stretching her white, flat mouth. Yes, it hurts, does it? She said softly. He did not answer. His heart was thumping very hard and fast. Was she talking about his hand, or did she know what he had just felt in his forehead? I think I have made my point, Mr. Potter. You may go. He caught his school bag and left the room as quickly as he could. Stay calm, he told himself as he sprinted up the stairs. Stay calm. It doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means. Nimbulus, remembered Tonia. He grabbed the fat lady, who swung forward once more. A roar of sound greeted him. Ron came running toward him, beaming all over his face and sloping butterbeer down his front from the goblet he was clutching. Harry, I did it. I'm in keeper. What? Oh, brilliant, said Harry, trying to smile naturally, while his heart continued to race and his hand trembled and bled. Have a butterbeer. Ron pressed a bottle onto him. I can't believe it. Where Hermione is gone. She's there, said Fred, who was alone swinging butterbeer, and pointed to an armchair by the fire. Hermione was dozing in it, her drink trickling preciously in her hand. Well, she said she had please then. I told her, said Ron, looking slightly put out. Let her sleep, said George hastily. It was a few months before Harry noticed that several of first year gathered around them bore unmistakable sign of recent nosebleed. Come here, Ron, and see if Oliver's robe fit you, called Cathy Bill. He can take off his name and put your instead. As Ron moved away, Angelina came straight up to Harry. Sorry, I was a bit short with you earlier, Potter, she said abruptly. It's stressful, this managing lark. You know, I'm starting to think I was a bit hard on Wood sometime. She was watching Ron over the rim of her goblet with a slightly frown on her face. Look, I know he's your best mate, but he's not fabulous, she said bluntly. I think with a bit of training he'll be alright. Though he comes from a family of good Quicher players, I'm banking on him turning out to have a bit more talent than he showed today. To be honest, Vicky Probster and Geoffrey Flopper both flew better this evening, but Hopper's a real winner. He is always moaning about something or other, and Vicky is involved in all sorts of societies. She admitted herself that if training clashed with her charm club, she had put charms first. Anyway, we are having a practice session at 2 o'clock tomorrow, so just make sure you are there time and do me a favor and help Ron as much as you can, okay? He nodded and Angelina strolled back to the Alicia Spinnet. Harry moved over seat next to Hermione, who walked with a jerk as he put down his bag. Oh, Harry, it's you. Good about Ron, isn't it? She said blearily. I'm not just so tired. She yawned. I was up until 1 o'clock making more hats. They're disappearing like mad. And sure enough, now that he looked, Harry saw that there will be woolly hats concealed that around the room where very young might accidentally pick them up. Wait, said Harry distractedly. If he speed, not tell someone, be soon he will bust. Listen, Hermione, I was just up in Umbridge's office and she touched my arm. Said Hermione, listen closely. When Harry had finished, she said slowly, you're worried that you know who is controlling her like he controlled Cruel. Well, said Harry, dropping his voice. It's a possibility, isn't it? I suppose so, said Hermione, though she sounded unconvinced. But I don't think he can be posing her the way he posed Cruel. I mean, he'll possibly alive again now, isn't he? He got his own body. He wouldn't need to share someone else. He could have her under the Emperor's curse, I suppose. Harry watched Fred and George and Lee Jordan juggling empty butterbeer bottle for the moment. Then Hermione said, but last year, your scar hurt when nobody was touching you. And didn't Dumbledore say it had to do with you know who was feeling at the same time? I mean, maybe this hasn't got anything to do with Umbridge at all. Maybe it's just coincidence it happened while you were with her. She's evil, said Harry flatly twisted. She's horrible, yes, but Harry, I think you ought to tell Dumbledore your scar hurt. It must watch. The second time in 2 days, he had been advised to go to Dumbledore, and his answer to Hermione was just same as the answer to Ron. I'm not bothering him with this, like you just said. It's not a big deal. It's been hurting on all of summer. It was just a bit worse tonight, that's all. Harry, I'm sure Dumbledore would want to be bothered by this. Yea, said Harry before he could stop himself, that the only bit of Dumbledore care about isn't it my scar. Don't say that. It's not scar. I think I'll write to tell Cyrus about it. See what he thinks. Harry, you can't put something like that in a letter, said Hermione, looking alarmed. Don't you remember? Moody told us to be careful what we put in writing. We just can't guarantee owls aren't being intercepted anymore. All right, I won't tell him. Then, said Harry irritably, he got to his feet. I'm going to bed. Tell Ron for me, will you? Oh no, said Hermione, looking relieved. If you are going to, that means I can go without being rude too. I'm absolutely exhausted and I want to make some more hats tomorrow. Listen, you can help me if you like. It's quite fun. I'm getting better. I can do pattern and gobble and all sort of things now. Harry looked into her face, which was shining with glee, and tried to look as though he was vaguely tempted by his or this offer. No, I don't think I will. Thanks, said. Not tomorrow. I have got lots of homework to do. And he trips off the boy's stair, leaving her looking slightly disappointed behind her. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next chapter. Till then, see ya. Bye bye.